Go ahead.
Thank you. I do have a recommended change. In attendance, it does not mention that Trevor Branch was here, so we need to amend the amendments to include members present to add Trevor.
Thank you for that, Brooke.
Yes.
Anyone else? If not, we would move for a motion to approve those minutes. And, okay, we have Pete with a second. Just go ahead and do a roll call real quick. Megan, please. Aye. Aye. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't plug you in there. Moving along, just to cover each section, we have the scheduled visitors and guests, which we have none. There is no unfinished business to review, so we'll move directly to our new business, which would be our first point of order and business would be zoning amendment 2022-497. Owner is Natural Bridge LLC. Location, the 77.55 acre parcel bordered by South Selmore Road on the northwest property line. Zoning request is R1C single family district. Cameron. Come on, here we go.
There you go.
All right,
Yes, the request is to rezone the property to R1C. The property is approximately 78 acres in size. The property is currently vacant. The R1C zoning would allow for lots of 10,000 square feet or greater. There are no overlay districts that affect this property. There is an identified trail corridor that shall be platted with the final plat. There are environmental features on the property such as wetlands, riverines, and floodplains further reviewed and permitted by the appropriate agency. The existing water and sewer system has capacity and shall be extended to the property to serve this development. The extensions would occur by the developer. The applicant has been coordinating with the road districts in the area for future improvements. We have 2 road districts that cover this area along with the city of Ozark streets. The Ozark Special Road District is to the northern side of this property, and the Selmore Road District, which has ownership of Selmore Road where it'll tie in. The comprehensive plan notes that this property has a future land use of mixed use. The property is surrounded by residential and agriculture uses. The single family residential use that is proposed is appropriate for the surrounding uses. Based on staff's report and staff's findings, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning application.
Thank you. And is anyone here on behalf of the applicant or the applicant themselves? Come forward, and if you will, hit that button. No, accept you in. That middle should be the middle.
Good.
If you will, state your name and address, please.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Ricky Haas with Olson. I'm representing the developer. My address is 550 St. Louis in Springfield, Missouri. So it's my understanding, I think we're going to have a lot of conversation about traffic study and stormwater improvements on this project, but it's my understanding we'll get into that in the next few cases. We were going to talk rezoning now.
The plat.
Yeah, when we get into the plat.
Yes.
So for now, I'm not going to really talk about those. I'm going to focus mostly on the zoning. So with that, like mentioned, looking to do 10,000 square foot single family lots. You know, we could be requesting smaller, but at this point we feel that lot size is what should be out here. That's going to be desirable for purchasers. And when you see this preliminary plat, you'll see that none of them are 10,000 square feet. They're all larger than that. There's one that's double the size of that. Many of them are 12, 13,000, 14,000 square feet in size. So we're not hitting that minimum on every lot. And so what it kind of comes out to with this overall plat, what we've got for this project is about 2.5 lots per acre. And so I think that's important to keep in mind here. And then also, this rezoning is strictly for this first phase right now. The developer doesn't have any intentions of moving forward with the future phases. We're gonna do this project, see how everything goes, make sure everything gets built out, get everything running. If future phases do happen someday, we would come back and be in front of y'all again. We're looking at a new traffic study, new improvements, new rezoning cases, new everything. So it's important that we keep in mind it's just this first piece here. Last thing I wanted to mention was something that was briefly mentioned was that for the comprehensive plan, this is a mixed use future use. You know, Selmore Road is a primary arterial that's going to have a lot of traffic. It's intended to carry a ton of traffic. You know, as Ozark grows, it's going to grow this way, and that road is going to carry a lot of traffic that way. So I think it's important to keep in mind that we're doing single family subdivision here, 10,000 square foot lots. What could be here, and I want everybody to make sure that they know, is what could be here could be a lot more intense. You know, it could be offices, commercial, stuff that produces a lot worse off stuff than what we're trying to do here with a single family subdivision. So with that, that's all I have on this one. So I'm here to answer questions though.
Okay, we'll call on you for questions.
Thank you all.
Does anyone, the applicant or anyone representing the applicant, still want to speak towards this before I open the public hearing part? Seeing none, we'll open up the public forum. If you would, please, we try to keep each speaker to 5 minutes if at all possible. And we are simply talking about the rezoning issue at this point. We can talk about the plating and the layout and all that at a separate point. So if we can just keep it the rezoning at this point for your comments. I do now open up the public for, we just kind of do it as a norm here. Does anyone that wants to speak, excuse me, in favor or for this rezoning amendment? We'll start there. Seeing no reaction, we will move to against. Anyone that wants to speak, feel free to come forward. We will need your name and address before you speak, please. Come ahead, sir. Can you speak first and then hand out so we know who you are?
Sure.
Identify first. Thank you.
Can we just go ahead with what I'm going to say and then give this to you at the end?
Sure.
All right. I thank you for allowing me to speak, and I hope I'm heard with open mind. My name is Paul Crow, and I live on Covered Bridge Road. I am only one of a group of concerned citizens in reference to, like to voice our concerns in reference to this natural bridge proposal. And apparently it's not the only one that's going to be impacting Ozark and the citizens. Are they aware of all the plans and the possible long-term effects it's going to have to this community? I, like others, love this community. Small town feel, the access to the local businesses, the friendly people we can contact with almost daily. And I'm sad to say, I think it's about to be lost. We can all agree that some progress is good, but rapid progress can be dangerous too. And with the impact of this development and the other developments will cause, I hope, this process to proceed with caution. I feel I need to make something clear. We are not necessarily against the development. We are only against the way it is being requested to be rezoned at this time. The water shedding is a short-term and long-term can cause a whole array of problems, from homeowners to homes to the area. Yes, we understand that there are retention ponds that plan to go in, but they're not always the solution they're thought to be. The damage of uncontrolled water shedding can affect foundations, wells, and septic systems, to name a few. Has there been any independent studies done to the effect to the surrounding areas? And if and when the damage occurs, who do we hold liable for this? This committee, the city, the engineering firm, Natural Bridge? Who? At some point, the city most likely will need to drill another city well to support this many homes. sometime within or after the completion of these developments. According to the EPA, the average person uses approximately 300 gallons of water. And per the US Census, there's 2.6 people that live in a home. If you just put 300 homes to that, with that many people living in them, that's 85.5 million gallons yearly. So a city well, I would think, would absolutely be needed and may cause other issues in reference to the private wells in that area. Has there been any independent studies in reference to that issue? And will the citizens have to pay more to support a new city well or pay or upgraded water treatment plant to occur with local wells, private wells? Who's to be held for that responsibility? In reference to first responders, the average American city has approximately 1.7 firefighters and 3.5 police officers for every 1,000 people. Are you willing to hire more so you can keep your citizens safe? With this rapid increase in housing, and common sense would dictate an increase in crime will also occur. How will the city pay for all of this? Do you have the money? Or are we looking at adding more taxes to our citizens? Would the citizens of both the city and the county be taxed to help pay for this? It has been said that it takes a new development at least 10 years plus before there's any economic payoff. At this point in our community, like all communities across our nation at this time, the high prices of food, gas, and utilities are hard. And it's very painful for our citizens. So we don't need to be taxed. The impact of that alone demands nothing else but caution and careful forethought. Has there been any independent studies in reference to that kind of an impact to our community, both city and county? I have been told that there are lead and zinc deposits on that area. Has there been any core samples taken and tested? If so, where are those test results? Has there been any independent testing done at all? Once the development begins and all the dirt is moved around and the dust is in the air, who will suffer? Who will be liable? Who owns the mineral rights? Once the lead and zinc material starts get moved around, will it become a possible problem for not only the local wells, private wells there, but for the city wells? I have family and grandchildren in this area, and I imagine, as do many of you, it would cause me sleepless nights if any of them came to harm, not just mine, but any child. And I think and pray you feel the same. In closing, we believe these and possible other unforeseen issues need to be completely reviewed, studied, and if testing is needed, all be done so an in-depth and educated decision can be made. A little more time does no one any harm. I would like to thank you for your time and for listening to me, and ask you to carefully think about our concerns.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you. Whoever would like to speak next, you can go ahead and get prepared. We'll hand these around for just a moment.
Good evening. My name is Jesse Serrano. I live at 176 Minnesota Road, which is at the intersection of Minnesota and Wisconsin roads, which are both part of this concern here. One of the things that I really would like to emphasize is in the 2019 comprehensive plan that Ozark has taken the time and the money to produce. One of the things that is pointed out in that is that there are, to handle the growth that's predicted from now to the next several years, we're looking at a growth of about 86 homes per year. And when I consider that, we think what we spent on high schools in the last few years. So since, I think in the last 12 years, with the building of the new high school building and then the refurbishment of the FASCO building, we spent about $104 million on high school. And in 2022, this will be the first year in several that the freshmen have actually been able to be a part of the high school because of the exponential growth we've had here in Ozark. And same thing now that they have been able to come to the high school, and the high schoolers won't be all going together in the same high school building. And when I grew up, I don't know if any of y'all experienced that, but the freshmen and all four classes of the high school really learned a lot from each other. And of course, there's bullying too, so there's that to contend with as well. But that's part of having a community of people learning how to get along with one another. And so now we hear that the fifth graders are going to be moved from an elementary school into with the junior high school because there's not enough room in the fifth grade area. Excuse me. So we have several of these considerations with classes now close to 30 students in the elementary school, which is a very high number of students for a teacher to handle at that age. So I really hope that when we're looking at this, that you'll consider some of the things that you said in your own documents, and I'll hand you a copy of these, but this is kind of a mixture of pages from the comprehensive plan. One of the first things that we see in there is that it says one of the goals of the comprehensive plan is to foster a transparent, efficient, and responsive dialogue between cities and city staff and officials. However, when I went to planning and development today, I was unable to find, I went there trying to find what is the latest version of this. The only one I saw on the website, which you'll see on the second page, is 2016. And thankfully, a young lady over here was able to help me find the 2019 version, but it's not even listed on the website. So I don't know how we can call that, or excuse me, it's not listed on the page of the website where you look up strategic plans. So, that's been quite a few years ago. Why isn't that there? And is that really being transparent? Is that being efficient in communicating with the people that are greatest affected by such an expensive and important document? This is, of course, the updated page, the comprehensive plan of 2019. And one of the things that caught my eye is when we're talking about the zoning, one of the things that talks here is under the purpose of study. It says that the R1D zoning, the development is currently going for R1D zoning. This, the new ordinance may replace R1D zoning with RSF1 and RSF2 zoning. I have no earthly idea what that means. With the development of 105 dwelling units of single family housing in phase 1. So when we're making a plan like this, well, then we look over here on the page, just following that, and here's a list of all the different types of zoning. And there is no mention of an R1SF or an R2SF on this page. So how is the community supposed to know what you mean by that? Also, we just heard from our two gentlemen back here that we're looking at R1C, but this document that you sent out for this meeting says R1D, which may eventually become R1SF and R2SF. So how clear is that to any of you? It's certainly not clear to me as someone in the community. I am not a community planner, not an engineer. However, it doesn't seem like that's really telling us what is going to happen with this property. And then when we consider, when we look at, I've already mentioned that on the comprehensive plan, it said that the growth of the city should be around 82 houses a year. But when we look at it, a lot of you are familiar with some of the other road issues that we've had with other communities that have the Grand Haven, the Old World Estates, and now we find that there's 50 acres south of Walmart that is going to be developed with what could be multifamily dwellings. So when we're planning, planning is all about not looking at what's in front of us, what we can see today. Planning is what's going to be happening down the road. So what I would like to see is that this property, rather than being considered for the R1C, which I believe says that the R1C developments are generally considered to be close to a central business district. And that's part of your own definition of R1C. So once again, I don't know if we're talking about R1C, R1D, or one of the SF models of that. But there is no central business district near this area. Central business district we would probably mean somewhere in Ozark, somewhere very close to Walmart, but it is not in this agricultural area where we all live. And many of us here have signed documents that say, hey, we're opposed to this because we would like to see this considered as an R1A, or I forget what the other one, what's the one above? Is it A1? A1, thank you, Laura. So A1 or R1A, because we think it makes a lot more sense. If you probably have all taken some time to drive through the area, if you were to drive on Minnesota Road, Wisconsin Road, and you were to try to leave that area in the morning, you would see, because of the way the traffic flow is there, it's already pretty dangerous it's sometimes a day to pull off of Minnesota Road, to increase the traffic by this extent, because once again, future planning is not planning for this 105 houses that they say it's all going to be built. I mean, there are another, 300 acres out there. So what's going to happen with those 300? How could we really make a planning decision with a developer that says they're only going to develop one small section of this land? And we need to consider what's going to happen down the road. There's just not that many access points that allow for clearing this traffic out during business times of day. So, with the exponential growth of these other divisions and what it's doing to our schools, and of course, we've already mentioned police, ambulance districts, things like that. It seems like we're all stuck on this number of 120 or 105 dwelling units. But that's not what may be down the road. So 105 dwelling units there, well, that covers the 86 that we say we need for growth every year. And then we've got the 50 acres south of Walmart. We've got Old World. We've got all these other subdivisions. So are we considering everything as a whole as to how it's going to create growth in our community? And how important is that for, all of the different services that are going to have to be provided for that? And of course, having a well right there at the corner, I'm wondering what's going to happen to my well. And as has already been stated, who do I go to if it ends up that my well, I have to dig deeper, or the water's unusable because of all the activity that's going on with such a high density of homes. So can anybody answer that? Or are we looking at R1? What is R1SF or R2SF?
Well, the only thing I can mention now to those two facets, which will answer your question. I will at this point. Those two, RSF1 and RSF2, or do you want to answer? Okay,
Thank you.
Go for it.
The application is for R1C, R1D is not being considered. The RSF1 and SF2 are two draft ordinances that staff has been working on for over a year now.
Mhm.
I believe what we're referring to is in the traffic study. They made reference to preliminary research, but that wasn't part of the staff's application for the request. The request is R1C as identified in our ordinances.
Okay, so on the document where it says that the Board of Aldermen could change that to R12SF, what does that mean?
That means that right now, the ordinances is in front of the Board of Aldermen for consideration to revise, but anything predating that would stay R1, A, B, C, D, whatever it is.
Okay.
Just because they're changing that ordinance wouldn't affect anything prior to that ordinance. It's just a future ordinance that staff has been working on to replace those. So if they do approve that ordinance 3-4 months down the road, it has no bearing on the application this evening.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Those are my
Thank you for your
comments,
time.
and I will hand these to you to pass out, I guess. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Just a second. Is it one question? Okay, come on. Come up to I need you up here.
This traffic study that you mentioned, who did that?
The traffic study is further evaluated in the plat. That's part of the platting process, but the traffic study was completed by CJW out of Springfield, Missouri.
Who paid for that? Did you guys pay?
The
city pay for
applicant.
that?
The applicant paid for that.
So is there going to be an independent study done?
Again, we'll further address that in the preliminary plat, but staff does review that in-house, plus our third-party engineer, along with the 2 road districts that are involved in this area.
Does the state engineer?
State engineer has no bearing or in review of any of these.
But he can.
I guess, no, I don't I'm not, well, I won't get an argument of that. They don't have any jurisdictional of this area. Okay. Oh,
Okay, next. Yes, sir. What I'll start now is just when your 5 minutes is up, I'll raise my hand, and if you can kind of zero in on the end. please.
Excellent.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Lawrence. I'm an attorney here in Ozark, and I'm here tonight with Virgil Tyson. Virgil's sitting at the back with me. Virgil is at 2920 Selmore Road, which would be the property that's just to the south of some of the proposed property that abuts Selmore Road. My purpose for being here tonight is, one, to reiterate what's already been said, so I won't say that again. But my client also believes that he's got a restrictive covenant on the property that abuts Selmore Road. It's about 12.5 acres. His property would be the property right next to it. When he purchased that property, he and the prior landowner had entered into some restrictive covenants that prevented anything smaller than 3-acre lots being built there as far as homes. And I brought a copy of those restrictive covenants with us. He's not sure what's planned for that part that's right there on Selmore Road, but to the extent that it's housing that would be less than 3 acres, again, he feels that he's got some covenants that would prevent that. And I think I brought enough copies to provide to each one of the commission members this evening.
Just so
And there's some other restrictions as
So
well.
I understand, could you be very specific about
Yes.
which property is his?
So it is, that's where he lives.
Okay, right,
Keep
okay,
going to the left. That's the property we're talking about.
okay, I just want to make sure.
According to my plan, it's about 12.5 acres. Anyhow, I've got a copy of those and they've been recorded. I've got a copy of the restrictive covenants. And that's really all I have to say on the issue,
Okay,
but I'll leave those with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. You write this down before I mess up. You have a question for him? Okay, just a moment, sir.
Yes.
Could you come back when I would like to ask you a question?
So you mentioned restricted covenants. Is the person that he purchased the land from previously owned that area that he had a restricted covenant on as well? Okay, that's what I was curious of.
Sold it to the.
Okay, that's what I was curious of. Okay, super. Thank you so much. Very easy question.
Who would want to be next? Come right ahead.
I have some signatures here that we would like to submit in opposition of considering of the rezoning of 2022-497 and the 2022-4098. This is in reference to the City of Ozark zoning
Oh, excuse
regulations.
me, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Oh, Laura
Sorry,
Massey,
that's my fault.
Massey, that's sorry. 199 Goldenrod Road in Ozark.
Thank you.
So these are in reference to the City of Ozark zoning regulations 405.870, specifically the E, where if we get 30% of the signatures of homeowners that are with 185 feet of the property being proposed to be developed, there would be some further interest in studies from the city, and that would be required by the developer. So we have those signatures from everyone that lives on Minnesota Road, everyone that lives on Covered Bridge Road, and some of the folks that live right off of Selmore, that the property would touch the back of the homes. Do you want us to submit those here tonight to you folks, or do they need to go to the planning and zoning office?
you can leave those with us this evening and we can evaluate those to make sure they qualify as a legitimate petition of this based on the state statutes that we've had to do that in the past. So we'll need to gather that and calculate the calculations to see if it qualifies or not.
Okay, I'm going to give you the originals, but we do have copies of them as well. But I will give you the originals here.
Just to clarify, then you mentioned both zoning cases. You have one for each of the case because both of them will have a different mailing location. based on the boundary and the 185 feet around that property?
No, what we had them do on the document, I can hand you a sample so you can look over it. We had the first homeowner, put their name, their address, their phone number. We put today's date. And then in this letter, we just put the 2 zoning cases.
For us to
We can get
calculate,
more.
we'd have to look at each one separately, just for clarification. For instance, like on this first one, this item on the agenda tonight, to the north of Minnesota Road might not apply because of that distance, because there's another parcel between them. But again, we'll have to evaluate those to make sure they
Okay.
apply to one. or
All
the
of
other.
these folks are the ones who received the letters. So we know they're.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can go around and get signatures and just have the documents separated. Is there a,
Not necessarily, just, like I said, we'll just clarify that when we go to review those and the locations.
let me pass this
Because I
into.
don't want to get that
Yeah, that
mixed
was
up.
just a copy. I'm sure I have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? I'll say either for or against either way for the 2022 497 zoning amendment. Oh, yes, sir.
I'll speak up. I've been here before. My name is Jim Palmer. I'm at 123 Melissa Avenue in Ozark. I'm across the way, but you know, I can already see the progress they're making on the power station out there, building up quite big and distorting my view of the sunset. And that's what I'm afraid of, you know, partially of the beautiful view that I have out there. Gorgeous sunsets at night. That's going to vanish when this starts going through. But I'm going to object to the proposal. I mean, this whole thing for a number of reasons, and a lot of them have been stated, so I'll try to keep it a little bit quick. But I'm really concerned about the environment. I hear that environmental studies are going to be done. Where are they? Are they open to the public to review? We'd like to see them. You know, there's a creek. There's the wetlands, the floodplain, the watershed, the James River. We know what kind of impact housing has on these things. We know about the natural bridge out there. There are caves out there, and I've got the documents for those caves if you want to see them sometime. The person who explored them, I think back in 1979, went all the way through one of them and went through right underneath the highway. So they're quite extensive. What kind of animals live in there that are going to be disrupted? The wildlife that are out there, coyotes, deer. Where are these creatures? Where are they going to go? You know, you've got eagles, hawks. We don't know what kind of other rare species could be out there. It's going to disrupt that. And I understand that a lot of you folks are standing tall with the environment. And I'm like everybody else. I understand progress. It needs to be made. But at the same time, we need to preserve what we have. And I think destroying some of the beauty around here is not very good preservation. I mean, there's so many different things that we could look at. And somebody mentioned about the toxic minerals, lead and zinc. I'm from Flint, Michigan. Guess what I feel about lead? And anybody else in here, I bet you anybody in the city would be concerned about that. Most of the folks around there probably don't even know those lead and zinc mines exist. I do, I have all the coordinates. And I don't think the general public would be pleased with all that dust and stuff in the air. It's been proven in the past, there's many cases that this kind of harm people. They're neurotoxins. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to breathe that stuff in. I don't live far from that development, so I could just see the wind picking up. It blows really nice in that valley. And with the well, I'm the same way. You know, I like the well water. I like the well water I have. I certainly don't want the city to drill a big well to serve everybody that's moving in and then deplete mine. Is the city going to pay for me to drill a deeper well? Would they be responsible? Would the developer who has a temporary LLC? Because we know how that works. Would they pay for it? We'll also mention the light pollution, because I know you guys are big on that. You know, it's nice to be out in the country, look up, see the shooting stars, hear all the majestic sounds at night without disturbance. And when that kind of stuff moves in, it ruins it. It ruins part of the history, part of the beauty of Ozark. I moved here because it was a good community. And I'm using past tense now, because as I see it build up, I've seen more crime. We had a shooting down our street. One of our neighbors was shot at. You probably saw it on the news. I don't like that. And I bet you none of you do either. To see your street flooded with police cars, plane flying over, looking for the suspect, and then hearing the gunshots as he shoots at the police and the police shoot back. This is what we're going to increase when you have these tiny houses, people with no incomes, and certainly probably not many jobs, because it doesn't seem like any of that's been planned. Where's the manufacturing in this town? Well, we can't get any. Do you know how? I do. I promote US manufacturing. It really, really bothers me that, you know, we have all these questions, no answers. We know our taxes will end up going up because you're not going to have enough room to build more schools. And they say this is just the first phase. Well, it's the first phase. Once they get the property sold, then they're going to jump into the next phase. What kind of studies? I mean, we hear about the traffic. I'd love to see those studies. Believe it or not, I'm educated enough to read those things. Now, I've been here for more than a decade in this city. I didn't get very much involved with the city council or anything like that. I live outside of town. But I do know that the current mayor loves the city. He loves the history. And this housing project is going to help decimate this area. Once that is built on, with all those houses, it can't be returned. 10-acre lots, I'd be willing to do that. I know the Osage tribe, they spoke highly of the place. The Native Americans around here love that creek. They love that natural land bridge out there. Have you guys seen the creek? It's beautiful. There's a petition online about 4,200 signatures of people who want to see that area preserved. You can look it up on change.org. It's there. We love this community. My wife and I love this community. We want to stay here. We want to participate, but we also want to see planning and zoning adhere to a good, solid plan that won't bring more harm than good. And I'm sure you guys can appreciate that. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you.
The floor is open. Whoever would like to be next. As they say, going once, going twice. I'll go ahead and close the public portion of our meeting at this time and open it to the commissioners for questions, comments that can be directed to. We do have engineers, we do have public works, we do have, of course, Cameron. So I open the floor to the members.
Cameron or Megan, can you confirm, is the packet for planning and zoning tonight, are those online that are accessible to the public?
Yes, they are online, and we upload those generally on the Friday before the meeting. So they are on the website for the packet, along with the board of alderman packets as well.
Right. So I just wanted to confirm that for you all that are interested, that asked about the transportation studies, any studies that have been conducted that have been done to date. You can go online to the City of Ozark website, grab the packet. It's a good read, and get that information so that way you know what the city's looking at, what we're looking at, all of that is out there. So, and those get posted usually a couple days before our meeting, so you can read those. So.
And that's a lot of reading for, you know, for us to get it. 80 backpacks.
We'll have to wait till the next, basically, public's closed now, okay? We'll reopen for the next amendment, okay? And if you'd like to ask it then, you could feel free, okay? Anyone else? Commissioners, questions, comments? Oh, I'm sorry.
As far as the concerns from the public regarding lead and zinc samples, is there any data that's gathered on that? Or how is that determined?
That information, I mean, that is upon the applicant to do those studies, determine that. There's nothing that staff has readily available that tells us yes or no out there, that information, but it is upon them to do their due diligence and research for that.
Sorry, the last part I said that.
I'm just saying it is on the applicants to do their due diligence. Staff only has a limited information about those specific details of property, but it is on the applicant to do their due diligence for any of those investigations.
I would like to bring up, Cameron, if you could comment kind of towards what you were talking about there. It was mentioned a couple of times about the involvement of other entities that would be felt later within the drawings and with the pursuit, like DNR, EPA and stuff like that. That's something that will happen. It's just not happened to this point.
That is correct. When we get into the floodplains, the wetlands, the riverines, that is something in-house. We do evaluate that as long as with our engineers that we have through third party or our own staff to evaluate those. But yes, once they get into more of the construction design and submittals of that, that's when we'll further evaluate those items related to those floodplains and wetlands.
So basically, to answer those questions, it happens after the process we're in this evening for the zoning and the plat. That comes at a later date when those entities become involved. And I'm sure that would all be made public if need be. I mean, it's always
everything in the
public
city
information.
is public information, as long as you go through the proper procedures for getting that data.
Right. And go ahead. Well, I'm sorry. Hit me.
Sorry. With the concerns from the public regarding well and I guess water availability, how is that kind of determined or assessed? If there is a new water tower that needs to be built for that area and the impact it has to the area?
At this time, this development will be served by our existing systems. So we're not proposing or planning any future wells to be drilled for this development. That's just as the city grows, further studies and evaluations will be done on those. I do, since we're talking about it, we'll add that there's a significant trunk main that goes through this property for the Elk Valley Treatment Plant for sewer services, has adequate capacity to serve this development. So no water will be pulled from the ground in this area to serve the drinking water for these facilities.
Anyone else? RJ, step in at any time. I didn't mean to call you out.
I think I'm on first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I realize you're like,
Go ahead.
I was just curious if the covenant had come about before with that the attorney brought forth, and kind of if you guys have done any research on this, or is this the first time we're seeing this?
Yeah, those were brought to our attention back in the annexation at that time. I don't recall the details, but covenants aren't enforced by the city. So any recorded covenants in the owners themselves. I believe those covenants didn't apply to this section of land, or this was a separate platted piece of property. At that time, it was divided at one point in time, but the full ownership was by the applicant. So in evaluating those covenants, it didn't apply to this property during the annexation.
Well, the only thing I add to that is I'm not actually a commissioner, so I don't want to speak too much upon anything here because I want to let you guys do your job, of course. But the one thing I would say though is about the concerns with schools and things like that. The ambulance district, the fire district, the school district, those types of things, they get most of their income off of property taxes. So a lot of that, with these different property taxes due to each home that goes in, I think they try to calculate that to make sure that with the growth there, it's able to sustain itself with the school district and things like that. So. No, that would be to a vote of the people. They're not allowed. Well, they get taxed appropriately, just like everybody else.
Sir, let me step in and ask questions when the public hearing is open, okay? That's no problem. No, I'll hear it all night if you want to talk, but I'm just saying we have a process we have to go through so she can record, Sir, please, you can say anything. You can speak in a moment, please, okay? Please. Any other commissioners? If not, I do have another question, Cameron, on the two things that were brought forward that bring question to me, which would be, Hadley mentioned the restricted covenants. And then we do, as you stated, need to review the signatures that were brought to see if they are, I don't know what else word to use, but adequate to form their protest or what have you. Could you comment there to see if these would indicate a step back on our part?
Yeah, as I mentioned, when the lady was up, that she wanted to leave that with us this evening. We'll further evaluate that, but we'd have to go through the calculation process to see if it does adequately satisfy the state statutes of a percentage wise of population,
right,
to petition against this. So again, if you want to leave those with us, would further evaluate those. I will say we've done that in the past on a few other applications, and it takes a significant number of people, the citizens in Ozark. Generally, it's looked at a city hold as well.
Right. But I guess my question bluntly is, should that affect our considering of the zoning amendment at the moment as far as passing or not passing tonight?
I will leave that.
Tabling or what? I don't mean to ask something I shouldn't, but I don't know.
No, I'll leave that in your hands and your answers. You guys are considering this for a zoning request of zoning the dirt, basically.
Right.
It is something that if we can further evaluate that before it goes to the Board of Aldermen, depending on your recommendation. So we could have those answers prior to the Board of Aldermen meeting as well.
Okay. Did that bring up any more questions? If not, it's time to make a motion from the commission. And understand too, bringing it to a vote doesn't mean the individual bringing it to the vote is for it. It can be denied. It can be a nay vote, okay? But we have to bring it to the table for a vote. So I'm opening the floor for a motion to move forward.
I make a motion to table it just to the next meeting to kind of check on those signatures piece and also just to kind of make sure that this covenant, but that would be the motion, is to table it for 1 month.
Do I have a second? I'll need a roll call vote, please, Megan. Aye.
Abstain.
Well, for procedural sake, moving to the, I'm assuming we would need to move to the second. Cameron, to do the same thing, if that, or does it apply now?
It is a separate application, so you'll need to go through the proper procedures. The discussion may be briefer, but you still need to treat it the same way.
Okay. Moving on to the second point of new business, zoning amendment 2022-498. Owner is Natural Bridge LLC. Location is the 40-acre parcel bordered by Minnesota Road on the north. Zoning request is R1C Single Family District. Cameron?
Yes, the request is to rezone the property to R1C. The property is approximately 40 acres in size. Currently, the property is vacant, and again, the R1C would be a 10,000 square foot lot minimum, could be greater. There are no overlay districts that affect this property. There's an identified trail corridor that shall be platted with the final plat. There are environmental features such as wetlands, riverines, and floodplains that are on this property and shall be further reviewed and permitted by the appropriate agencies. The existing water and sewer system has capacity and shall be extended to serve this property. The developer is responsible for extending those services. The applicant has been coordinating with the road districts for future improvements. The comprehensive plan notes the property with a future land use of mixed use. The property is surrounded by residential and agriculture. Single-family residential would be an appropriate use with the surrounding areas. Based on staff's report and staff's findings, staff does recommend approval.
Thank you. I won't ask for the applicant. I'll go ahead and open the floor to the public again. And we'll just go ahead and say for or against at this time. Anyone that wishes to speak may feel free to do so. Okay, I'll need your name and address again.
Serrano 176 Minnesota Road, beautiful Minnesota Road. I wanted to address a couple of issues that you brought up during your own questions. Number one, addressing the schools. I know it seems reasonable that because we're going to have a broader tax base, depending on how many homes are built in this area, that is going to be adequate to handle the overabundance of students that we have. But when we look at our schools today, we'll see that that's not the case. Our growth so far has exceeded the capacity of our schools, and to the point where we have to do these things like mixing the fifth graders with the sixth, seventh, and eighth, or taking the seventh or the ninth graders and putting them back with the sixth, seventh, and eighths. We have, classrooms, elementary level, once again, close to 30 students a class. I mean, I think the recommendation that I've seen is 20 students per class for a teacher. So yeah, there's the tax base, maybe it will eventually catch up with that. But even what we see right now, the growth we have had so far has not adequately funded to this point where the kids can serve like you would normally expect as a high schooler, freshman, sophomore, senior, junior, everybody together, or with the, now the fifth graders moving in with the higher students. So, maybe that's going to resolve itself eventually. I'm sure there's probably plans in place to grow our school system, but at this point, just broadening the tax base has not fixed that. The other thing was, you mentioned, I'm sorry, I think maybe you'd mentioned about the where the studies were to come from concerning the lead and maybe it was you. Okay, I'm sorry. But when it says that it's the applicant, I guess that went off.
Oh, you're good.
It's up to the applicants.
Push your button again. Push your button again.
Okay, green means yeah. So if that's up to the applicant.
I'm gonna speak on something you said very much, so you misquoted a few times. I apologize, so I want to make sure it's, but I don't want to interrupt your time.
Yes, I mean, if it's the applicant that's responsible for it, how rigorously are the results of the applicant going to be reviewed? Because when it comes to things like this, and I'm not as concerned, I mean, of course, we're all concerned with the air quality. I'm much more concerned with the water quality because my well is literally on this corner once again. And, you know, if the applicant, we've all seen in the past, applicants have abused some of their planning ahead. We saw that in some of the subdivisions that we talked about last year at this same time when we were discussing this same subdivision. People brought up another subdivision where there'd been a lot of road issues. And as far as the egress and all for that subdivision, I just don't want to see that happen again. And I wondered if anybody could answer on Minnesota Road specifically. There's a map that's available on the pages that were submitted on the website. We were able to download that, but I will say it's not easy to find. It would be really cool if there was like a calendar of events at the very start of the City of Ozark page, and it would list all of the different meetings and things that might be available, and we could just click on that. This is today's meeting. Here's the documents for that meeting. Otherwise, it's very difficult to find. Like I said earlier, when I went into the P&D office today, looking at your own website, we could not find the 2019 comprehensive plan. They actually had, she actually went out to Google and had to Google it because it is so convoluted to find things on your own website that the people who work in the office depend on Google to do it, which means that those of us in the public who do not know specifically what that document is named are going to have more difficulty in finding that. So it doesn't seem like a very good way to communicate. But I'd like to find out what's going to happen with the actual road, Minnesota, because the Minnesota road is my entire northern border of my property. And by the map that you guys provided, it seems like, and I could be mistaken, because once again, I'm not an engineer, but it seems like it went pretty far onto, the easement went pretty far onto my property. Can anybody answer that?
We might be able to talk about that during the plating process, but during the zoning.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. And
Yeah,
I guess
we discussed that on the plating side.
all right, and I guess my final point is, you know, when we're talking about zoning something like this to allow for such small houses, and then we're talking about doing the environmental impact studies afterwards, to me, that really sounds backwards. It seems like we would want to know what is it going to take, you know, for the number of houses that are being started instead of being R1A. Now we're saying it can be R1C, but what's the difference between those two impacts, and what are the environmental impacts in that regard? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think we should have opened up the opportunity for the applicant to speak, even though they've already heard the first results, but they should have had that opportunity to speak. So I thought we should have brought that back in order. They could have maybe addressed some of the other concerns. However, I just got notification they wish to table all these applications. So at this point, I don't know it's worth wasting their time to hear anything or talk about it. Welcome to open it back up, but they're not here to address this one or the preliminary plat.
Okay. So I would assume that we're at the point of tabling. So you're saying both zoning amendments?
Both the zoning and the plat, and since the applicant doesn't have a representative here, in some cases, it would just die.
It would die anyway.
And so you just table it until they can make representation.
Do we need to vote on that, or is it just done?
You would, same thing, make a motion to table and then vote on it. And then we get to the preliminary plat, we can read it. The applicant won't have a representation here, then just
table it.
Yep.
Hadley, go ahead.
Can I touch on something real quick that you mentioned twice? Just so with the schools, the 5th and 6th grade are going to be together. You alluded to multiple times that 5th or 8th grade is together. So I just wanted that clarified that at no point will 5th or 8th grade be together. It's just going to be 5th and 6th grade in the middle school building and 7th grade. I just wanted to clear that up because you said that twice incorrectly. I apologize. As a teacher in the district, that just kind of, I didn't say anything the first time, but then it said again. So I just wanted the community to be aware. I also wanted to touch on something that RJ said. So with the taxes for the school district, did set it that amount. Even the thing that just got approved, that just extended it out. But for things with schools, that's nothing that comes from us. So that would be something that if we were going to raise the tax rate for schools, that would be something that would have to come on the ballots and all that stuff. And I know you mentioned that, sir. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear for the schooling piece. That would be one thing. Yeah. If I may interject.
Just a moment.
The more homes you build, single family homes, the more families you have, the more kids you have to go to school, the more schools you build. I would just say, I know you mentioned that. I just wanted you to know that if we don't we don't tie into that tax piece, but if the tax rate goes above that 414, that would come through a ballot measure. Just want to throw that.
All I'm looking for is a motion to table. Who would like to do that?
I'll make a motion that we table that amendment. 2022-498.
Based upon
The applicant's
request.
request.
There we go. Do I have a second?
To table zoning amendment 2022-498 based on applicant request.
Roll call vote, please.
Jeff Harrison.
Aye.
Kylie Goldberg. Kim Post.
Aye.
This will be quick too. So the preliminary plat, letter C. The Natural Bridge subdivision owner, Natural Bridge LLC, location approximately 42.8 acre development bordered by South Selmore Road on the northwest property line and by Minnesota Road on the northern property line. You want to make comments?
This was the application for preliminary plat to go with the zoning. The plat they did submit did conform to requested zoning, but at this time, I think since they have left the meeting, there's no representation. I'd recommend same process and not get into the detailed discussions.
Okay, with no need for that, I'm looking for a motion to table the preliminary plat.
I moved to the table of preliminary plat to the previous table on the same measure. And then we.
Second? Pete, second? Roll call vote, please.
Trevor Gray. Jeff Harrison.
Aye.
Kylie Goldberg. Kim Post.
Aye.
Michael Absent. Pete Rittenbrough. And Bruce Street. Gary.
Okay, moving along to D, which is the zoning amendment 2022-499. Owner is M.O. Ozark Asset LLC. Location is the approximately 40.9 acre parcel bordered by South 19th Street to the east and south. The zoning request is R1D, single family district. Cameron?
Yes, the request is rezone the property to R1D. The property is approximately 41 acres in size. The property is currently vacant. R1D zoning would allow for lots of 7,000 square feet or greater. There are no overlay districts that affect this property. There's an identified trail corridor. The property is obligated to note that and plat that on the final plat. There are environmental features of wetlands and riverines on the property that shall be further reviewed and permitted by the appropriate agency at the time of construction drawings. The existing water and sewer system has capacity and shall be extended to this property to serve the development by the developer. The applicant has been coordinating with the road district and the city for future improvements along 19th. The comprehensive plan notes that this property had a future land use of mixed use. The property is currently zoned PUD, which is a similar type mixed use environment. The property is surrounded by a variety of uses. The single family residential would be an appropriate use for this area. Based on staff's report, staff's findings, staff is recommending approval.
Okay, do we have a representative or the applicant themselves? Sir, step forward.
Clayton Hines. I'm with Schaefer and Hines Engineers, and my address is P.O. Box 493, Nixa, Missouri 65714. Need my phone number too? No, okay, just the address. Okay. I'm representing the Mo Asset Group, and basically we're here to. We've got three things on the agenda, as you guys are well aware of, for the R1D, the R2, and the preliminary plat. So I think it's pretty straightforward what our request is. So I'm basically here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay,
as they come up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So with the same rules that we'll try to adhere to. Open up the public hearing. Try to keep it to 5 minutes and name and address and speak specifically to the zoning amendment that we're dealing with. The floor is now open to anyone that would like to speak to this zoning amendment. Yes, sir. You're good. Go ahead and hit that button one more time. You were on.
Hi, my name is John Pospisil, 230 Melissa Avenue, Ozark. I'm just curious, when you have the preliminary plat here on subsection F, what type of homes or what type of property is this going to be? Single family, multifamily?
Well, as it says in the zoning amendment, it is R1D. What we're talking about right now on letter D, the very last line, zoning request is R1D.
Okay, I see
single
it.
family.
What is R1D?
R1D, which Cameron explained. If you'd like to do that one more time, please.
R1D is the single-family zoning district in the city that allows for lots of 7,000 square feet or greater.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public aspect and turn it over to the commissioners for questions or comments. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Hines on the development, if you don't mind. And this might be for the next amendment, but I was looking at the CJW traffic study. And it references in there, a development is proposed for an existing parcel south of South Street on 19th Street. So Cameron, can I talk about that now? Are we okay? Is that the next one?
You can ask a question, you can ask the traffic study is actually supplied with a plat. It doesn't mean you just can't ask.
Okay, here's what my question is. It says here that the proposed development includes 153 single-family detached housing dwelling units and 83,500 square feet of general retail space. So if we zone this as a single family, the R1D, then can they still have the retail space there?
If the zoning is approved, it would only be allowed for this parcel to have R1D single family.
Okay, so my question to you then is, does that impact the intent of that development? Were you thinking both single family and retail space?
No.
Or only single family?
Single family, and it's your next one is duplexes, R2.
Okay,
So those two go together and they're on our
Okay.
preliminary plat. And the duplexes, the R2, which you'll
Yeah.
see next, is the part along Highway 65.
yep, okay, so there's no retail space going into this development. Okay, very good.
In that traffic study, just to elaborate a little bit, with more of a traffic memo, because the city already had a master traffic study that we're following that deals with all of 19th Street.
Okay,
And so it was more like, we're just wanting to do whatever you guys want to do as a city, which is to expand 19th Street and widen it, of which we're going to do.
okay,
That's part of an agreement we already have with the Board of Aldermen. So. Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? And if none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve zoning amendment 2022/500.
Turn your thing on. All right, well, come on.
I move to approve zoning, sorry. What else? I can talk pretty loud. I move to approve zoning amendment 2022/500.
Clarification, -499.
499, sorry, I was off the page. 499.
Do I have a second? Roll call vote, please. Megan?
Chairman Bray. Jeff Harrison.
Aye.
Patrick Goldberg.
Aye.
Wim Oates.
Aye.
Alexis Calhoun absent. Rick Rose. And Bruce Green.
Okay, moving along to letter E. Zoning amendment 2022-500. Owner Ozark Asset LLC. Location, the approximately 15.6 acre parcel bordered by US 65 highway to the west and partially bordered by South 19th Street on the south. Zoning request is R2, which is two-family district. Cameron?
Yes, the request is to rezone the western portion area to R2, two-family. The property is approximately 16 acres in size and the property is currently vacant. R1D zoning would allow for lots of 10,000 square feet or greater. The property shall conform to the 65 overlay district at the time that they pursue the final plat and the construction of the residence. There are no environmental features other than one wetland that's identified on the site that shall be further evaluated during the permitting. The existing water and sewer system has capacity and shall be extended to the property to serve the development by the developer. The applicant has been coordinating with the Ozark Special Road District along with the city of Ozark for future improvements of the highway connection or the road connection to 19th Street. The comprehensive plan does note the property with the future land use of mixed use. The property is surrounded by a variety of uses. The two-family residential request would be appropriate for the uses of the area. Based on the staff report, staff's findings, staff is recommended approval.
Okay, thank you. And again, I'll open up the public hearing facet. If anyone would like to speak towards this amendment of rezoning, or excuse me, of zoning. I see no movement, so are you on? Okay.
Quick question. So you said the R1D and then you said a 10,000 square feet. I thought it was 7 in R1D.
The previous application, R1D, which is 7,000 square feet, this request is R2, two-family, such as a duplex. Well, there's two units on that one lot.
Okay,
so
thank you very much.
Anyone else? I see none, so we'll close the public portion and open it up to the commissioners for questions or comments. And if none, we'll get a motion to pass it on. Want to be on? Oh. You ready to go? You're on. Go ahead.
I didn't do it on purpose.
Somebody give me a motion. We can do it. I know we can.
I make a motion that we approve zoning amendment 2022-500 based on staff findings.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Deb Garrison,
Aye.
Kylie Goldberg. Tim Oaks.
Aye.
Owens Pavlov. And Pete Renfro.
Aye.
Guys have it.
Okay. Next item is the preliminary plat for Valley Ridge subdivision. Owner is MO Ozark Asset LLC. Location, the approximately 40.9 acre parcel bordered by South 19th Street to the east and south, as well as the approximately 15.6 acre parcel bordered by US Highway 65 to the west and partially bordered by South 19th Street on the south. Mr. Cameron.
yes, the applicant is for the preliminary plat of Valley Ridge Estates. The preliminary plat does conform to the requested zoning districts that was in the two prior applications. The preliminary plat does identify the required trail easement through the area. Once the water and sewer plans are designed for the sizing of this development, staff and the third-party engineers will further review those for compliance. Also, those are shared with the Department of Natural Resource for review as well. Staff and the third-party engineers have reviewed and approved the preliminary storm report that's been supplied with this application. The applicant is working, as I mentioned before, with the city and the special road districts to identify and address any required roadway improvements to 19th Street. Based on the staff report and staff's findings, staff does recommend approval of the preliminary plat.
Is anyone here, you want to speak again towards the preliminary plat? You don't have to.
I'm mostly here.
You don't
Yeah,
have to.
Clayton, do you need my stuff again? Are you good? Okay. Just some real quick statistics. Just take a second. Basically, we're looking at 105 single family lots, 34 duplex lots, On our R1D, we're generally, we meet the minimum. We're a little over that for sure. Basically, we're 65 by 120, 65 wide by 120 deep was kind of our footprint. Your R1D required coving of the streets, which is pretty cool. It'll keep them a little bit curvy and help with traffic flow a little bit and speeds and things like that. And that also sets up for varying setbacks. To whereas, our front setback will vary from 25 to 30 to 35, which it kind of, as you look down a street, it'll move the houses a little bit. And basically our footprint was to give at least a 50-foot wide house on here. So with your side yard setbacks and the width, what's left over, we're going to be able to build at least a 50-foot wide house on here by whatever depth. So we're really excited about this. Their last statistic of the total lots, single family and multifamily, over 56 acres, our density is only 2.57 lots per acre, which I feel like is a little low. And the reason of that is we have so much open space that's out on 19th Street due to the drainage that we just left alone. We're gonna, respect that like we should with stormwater. We're providing stormwater detention in that drainage area. It's gonna make for a nice look off of 19th Street too, because of the way the hill goes up. It'll be a nice open space right off 19th Street, even though it's for drainage, it'll still look really nice. So we're excited about it. We'll meet all the codes, as he said, when it comes to street design, storm sewer design, water, sewer, all those kind of things. So I'm here to answer any questions now or as you get them in your discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and open up the, the public portion for this application. Does anyone want to speak for or against the preliminary plat? Seeing no movement, I will close the public portion and open it up to the commissioners for questions or comments or a motion. 1 to 3.
Could you speak a little bit to the street improvements that you're gonna do to accommodate the traffic that'll be going back? Can you speak to the street improvements, specifically like 19th Street or South Street, and what you're gonna do to accommodate the new traffic?
South Street, but basically the deal that's in place is we're gonna pick up, go between Walmart roads.
Yeah.
You've got a 3-lane curving road, basically. And that essentially capers into the 2-lane 19th Street that goes by the property. We're basically gonna pick up where that 3-lane is, continue with to the end of our property. Now, we're not gonna wrap around the south side of it.
Okay.
We're gonna discuss that with city staff and special road district going on there, whether to keep that road or not. The part only gonna go 4 lanes. But this is part of a bigger master plan. I don't know how familiar. I'm not real intimate with all of it. I know this road keeps going. I think it gets over to Selmore Road. Is that right, Cameron? It's part of the master plan.
This is all, yeah, it's all within the Ozark Center TUD, the Transportation Development District. And then, yes, you are correct. It is part of a bigger master plan for additional improvements outside of the scope of this project.
So we are in agreement that we're gonna build that road. The developers are gonna build that road all along our front.
Your property, yeah, okay, thank you.
Anyone else? You wanted to. Okay. No questions, entertain a motion.
I make a motion. Yep.
You're good.
Make a motion to approve Valley Ridge Estates per staff recommendation.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Jeff Garrison.
Aye.
Hadley Goldberg. Wim Oakes.
Aye.
Alexi Pavlov is absent. Pete Renfro. And Brooke Street. You guys have it.
Thank you. We'll be moving on to an ordinance amendment, amending letter G is an ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter 407 of signs, looking at our signs. Camera, there you go, sir.
Yes, staff has brought back an update to that ordinance. No significant changes, but we did finish our coordination with some of the court cases to make sure we comply with those, the Reed case specifically. So we've made those changes where we're addressing all what we call a temporary sign equally. We're not addressing it based on content, whether it's a real estate sign or a political sign or whatever. We're just basing it on the sign itself and the size and locations. So we've updated that information in the sign ordinance. We found a few things that we are coordinating or fixing, I guess, if you will, for any kind of typos or references. But other than that, nothing has changed since the last time you seen the ordinance, and staff is asking for a recommendation from the commission.
Okay. Thank you. Does this require public since it's?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I'm still a little bit at the procedures. With that being said, as staff, anyone, we will be opening up the public option here for comment concerning our chapter 407 signs. Anyone like to speak to signage? Come ahead.
Jesse Serrano, 176 Minnesota Road. Once again, although this actually doesn't have to do with this, but right at the end of the previous person's presentation, they were talking about a road going through from behind Walmart through Selmore Road. I just wondered if somebody could address that, although that's a different part.
I'll just quickly say in the future plans of the city, that is a goal to have a connection all the way through to Selmore Road from the existing south curl of 19th Street.
Okay, so 19th would go, I know where it ends there, so it would come back through to Selmore Road.
Correct.
Do you know where it would come out at, as in relation to Minnesota Road, or?
That hasn't even been determined yet, I don't believe.
Okay.
It's a goal.
Yeah, it's identified as a conceptual route. I mean, the staff is still working long-term on any kind of easements and evaluating those. There's also connections back up to South Street that we're evaluating, trying to provide an alternative route to get back to the signal instead of 15th coming out to South Street. Because we know it's difficult, especially with the road windings. But no, there's several scenarios of future connections. Probably could find that. I don't have it in front of me, but that the approval of that transportation development district, it does identify those future routes, A, B, C, and kind of long-term plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, did you want to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
Name is Jonathan Stone, 2225 North 20th Street. I could not understand what this has to do with the signage. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, the staff is working on updates, revisions to our current sign ordinance, proposing things to accommodate some additional type signs, allowing for different sizes of signs, additional wall signs along buildings. Staff was made aware of a Reed court case that you can no longer dictate a specific sign based on content of signs, so we're removing any discrepancies in the ordinance that might allude to that, such as, like I said, examples that coming up a lot of times are real estate type signs or political signs. We're basically treating those all as a temporary sign based on an event. So they occur before an event and after an event, whatever that event might be. The only thing we can restrict is the not the location. Well, I guess the location not on right away, but the size of those signs, they're all kind of treated similar, but not based on content, but the type of sign of the temporary sign.
Okay. Understanding that you have a new sign inspector or somebody to.
No, we don't have a new sign inspector. There's not a sign inspector.
Okay, who enforces the sign code?
I think what you're referring to is we have a code enforcement officer.
Okay.
And yes, we hired a new code enforcement officer that took over from the prior code enforcement officer that we had, that he started a little over a month ago with the city.
Okay. How does someone bring about something that's in question?
like a violation?
Yes.
Either way, you can reach out to the City Hall, the Planning Development Department, or go through our online complaint portal, I guess, if you will, and make that, file that complaint. But we do ask that we get all those in writing into our portal so that we can have the documentation to move forward.
Okay. Are roof signs and an illegal sign?
Roof signs by our ordinance are not allowed signs. However, they're recognized if they're existing, they can be refaced, but they can't be reconstructed or added any new. As long as they are a structurally sound sign, they can be refaced.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Are you interviewing questions about other things or
just the signs. Okay. If no one else, I'll close the public portion and move it to the commissioners to discuss, comment, or offer a motion on letter G, the ordinance for 407 signs.
I know we talked through this a lot last month, so I mean, for me, and I just checked, I mean, everything I think kind of, he said nothing really changed other than cleaning up what we did. So I mean, I don't, just to reiterate with everyone that I feel like we've kind of talked a lot with this, but if there's anything else, I just wanted to reiterate that for everyone.
Is that a motion or not?
I'll make a motion. Yeah, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance for municipal code chapter 407 signs.
Pete, second. Roll call vote, please.
Carol Branch. Doug Harrison.
Aye.
Kathy Goldberg.
Aye.
Tim Oates.
Aye.
Alexa Cowell is absent. Keith Renfro. And Brooke Street.
Okay, moving along, letter H. An ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 405.350 C4, design guidelines related to signs. Cameron?
Yes, I don't know if we got into the C4 in detail a lot the last time, but the only thing staff is really doing in this section is actually cleaning up the same kind of references to temporary signs. We're deleting anything that was already identified in our standard sign ordinance, so the overlap. Again, example here, the refacing of an existing non-conforming, those are already addressed in the sign ordinance. And additional, there's a section about roof signs, they're already addressed in the sign ordinance. Flyers, streamers, banners, those are things that we're going to fall under our temporary sign. We did a cleanup to the historic permit, so because we no longer have a historic preservation commission, so we just cleaned up some verbiage there. Temporary signs, like I mentioned before, just clean up because we're handling those in our overall sign ordinance. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I will open it to the public for comments or questions. It's your turn. Okay, I'm gonna close it. It's now closed. Opening it to commissioners. Question, comments, or motion? I'll get mine in tonight. I motion we pass.
I'll second.
I ought to read it. Section 405, 350 C4 design guidelines related to signs. Hadley seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Carol Branch. Doug Harrison.
Aye.
Kathy Goldberg.
Aye.
Tim Oates.
Aye.
Alexa Cowell is absent. Keith Renfro. And Brooke Street.
Okay, letter I. An ordinance amending the municipal code of the Ozark, Missouri, section 405.478, historic overlay district signs. Cameron?
Similar to the revisions from the past ordinance, we also took an opportunity to evaluate some things that we thought was a redundancy again, such as attaching to the utility pole, light pole, such in public right of way. We omitted that language as it's already in the sign ordinance. Non-conforming signs. We removed some of what we felt was maybe a little too far of a burden about the type of sign, the fabrication, and the size of sign and shape. We're gonna let that be the applicant's choice on how to handle those. We did remove this language about no window advertising signs. Staff has felt that it is appropriate for those to extend downtown, like around the square from window to window. The prior ordinance says that they cannot extend from window to window, but if they want to blend that sign on across the front of their business, they can. Display boards, we removed that again. It was already covered in our primary sign ordinance. We found a typo, been in there for quite a while, so we updated that. A-frame, what we call A-frame signs or sandwich board signs are already addressed in our sign ordinance. In addition to grand opening, banners, those temporary type signs. So we're handling all that by the overall sign ordinance.
Thank you, sir. Opening up public comment for last signage amendment. Yes, sir. Come right on.
This is for the historic district?
That is correct. Just the historic district.
Does that include, is it Appleby, the law offices?
The Appleby, I guess, yes and no. On the west side of Third Street is not a historic district. On the east side,
On the east side is, okay, so those new channel letters are approved on that building.
What they've constructed, at that time, we did have a historic commission and they did go through the commission for approval and they did get approval on those.
Okay, so it's within the inner circle.
Yes, it's a little beyond. It's called our downtown district area. It's actually it's the square and maybe a east. I'd have to look up, find the exact boundary, but there is a perimeter around there that the historic district has an additional overlay in.
I see. Okay, I was just wondering how far that went, because I noticed there's another thing is if it's historic, why isn't it limited to say historic, like on the windows, lettering, as opposed to vinyl?
Like I said, at the time when this ordinance was brought about, it was actually with a commission, and that's what the commission was proposing, and staff is cleaning up some of those based on some of the historical guidelines that we had at the time when we were a CLG, a certified local government. Those types of letterings were not a recommended type for historic properties. So that's what we don't have in there in the ordinance that you're referring to.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You. If no one else, we'll close the public portion of the last sign amendment. Commissioners, questions, comment, or motion?
Pointed out that his agenda has 2 of the same sign ordinances in our packet that we sent out and also that we uploaded. It's correct, and it has the C4 district as well as the historic. Just the ones I printed out for our commissioners are slightly wrong.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 405.478.
I'll second. Roll call, please, Megan.
Trevor Rich. Doug Harrison.
Aye.
Pat Wilbur. Cliff Phillips.
Aye.
Alexa Chapel. Aye. And Bruce Green. Aye.
Thank you. Well, that takes care of our amendments for this evening. Let me ask a question. Huh? Close. You don't have to have their cough drop. Okay, we're going to end with, starting just with open discussion. If anyone would like to raise a question or a comment, I'll welcome you back to the microphone.
I just have a couple of questions. And it's back to this natural bridge. Did they withdraw their application?
Hold on.
Specifically about those applications, but they have pulled it, so they tabled it tonight, so they could be bringing it back.
Okay, thank you. So I have just 3 comments then. In reference to the studies, if they do it afterwards, basically, isn't that too late? Especially for homeowners in that area to know the results of those?
My opinion would be that's the normal process.
Yeah.
It makes for here?
For this is the way cities do it. It's just a normal process, whether you agree with it or not.
Well, I've been associated.
If we pass it, if we would have passed the zoning and the plat, at that next process is when DNR, EPA, and if they find something amiss, that's when the brakes get hit. Okay, that's my understanding.
All right. Then I guess the last thing I want to say is in reference to what you said in reference to property taxes and all that. Property taxes, in my experience, and I have been associated with municipal for most of my adult life. If municipalities, if property taxes paid for everything, we wouldn't have sales taxes along with those. They don't pay for everything. They never have, although they do pay for a chunk, but they don't pay for everything. And my last comment is, I want to thank each and every one of you guys. I know that you sitting there on your evenings is not easy. I've been in way too many of these meetings over years, and I know how it feels. It gets, sometimes it's a thankless job. So I wanted to thank you for your time and your commitment. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Okay. Turn it over to the commissioners for comments or anything that you would like to discuss this evening. The floor is open.
I just want to double check. So next month, Memorial Day falls the last Monday of the month. So are we doing the day after Memorial Day? Is that Tuesday? Sorry, I just want to double check. I might be wrong, but
I've got the calendar somewhere.
I have to look at it. Memorial Day is the 30th, so I just want to make sure. I know we're not doing it Memorial Day.
I think it's the Tuesday.
So we're meeting, it's 1 week earlier. Okay, never mind.
Oh, okay.
My bad. Mood issue. Sorry. Sorry, no. Double check, so we're, okay.
And I did have one other question that was addressed, I forget what it said, it was,
Got put up Friday for the lengthy thing. I mean, I know for me, it took me probably, 2 or 3 hours this weekend, really just kind of looking through stuff. Is that something that we have where we could try when it's lengthy to put it up a little earlier? Or is that some within our controllers? They're like, that was just my question with that.
Yes, our goal, as we discussed in the past, we adjusted the calendar, and our goal is to get that out a week in advance. But I would tell you that this packet was a large packet. And so, again, with the cutoffs and calendars, I think it's back to just trying to work with the applicants as well to be reasonable with them, and then considering what other communities do and make sure they meet those cutoffs.
Start on this end. I'll let you go first. You're good? Okay, Trevor? I may have skipped you. You want to say something? Okay. William?
Okay.
One more time.
Nice job, I noticed that big improvement, just like this day, that morning stress not clean up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we need more people though, because that was my 78-year-old dad, me and my husband, and then we had 3 or 4 other families, but we cleaned from Evans Road up to Sun Solar. But there is a little section that we didn't quite get to because we were 2.5 hours in and we were just like spent. So we've got to get back out there. But 65 is definitely looking better.
stuff with you, it's just at the end of the year, it's so hard.
Yeah. Yep, so we're a year-round organization, so definitely, thank you.
Yep, good job. Cameron, leave it in your lap. Nothing more. Yes, sir. One thing left to do. Who wants to go home? Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.